Minister Stanton, you're very welcome to the House and thank you for coming in to deal with this commencement matter. The full text of my commencement matter is to ask for the Minister for Justice, Equality and Law Reform to provide information concerning persons in respect of whom permission has been given by the Minister to come to Ireland from Syria as part of the Irish Refugee Protection Humanitarian Assistance Admission Programme, but whose access to travel documents has been impeded by the conflict and the relevant authorities, and if the Minister can make information available regarding a procedure for assisting persons to travel here urgently, as in many cases their lives are in serious danger back in Syria. The context for this, Minister, as you're well aware, is that the Minister Flanagan announced the Irish Refugee Protection Programme Humanitarian Admission Programme last year to provide a pathway for eligible family members coming from major conflict zones as part of the government's commitment to realise the full amount of 4,000 persons to come in under the Irish Refugee Protection Programme. The programme was to provide for 530 vulnerable family members to be admitted before the end of 2019. I have figures released by Minister Flanagan in the Dáil showing that unfortunately much less than that have actually come in, because 75% of the first round of applications were refused. Now that's a matter of grave concern. I've met with members of the Irish Syrian Solidarity Movement and members of the Syrian community who tell me there are all sorts of obstacles in the way of persons getting their documents in. Sometimes documents may be incomplete with lack of identity papers, and some people may lack accommodation. So that's one particular issue of concern. The more specific issue I raise in this commencement matter relates to persons who have received permission for vulnerable family members still in Syria, and I have been in communication for a number of months with INIS in your department, the Naturalisation and Immigration Service, and the travel document section relating to one particular family in a very, very urgent situation where they have family members in Idlib under siege. They cannot get out of Idlib. They've been given permission by the Irish state to come to Ireland, where they have very close family members, in some cases siblings here, and but they have been told, and I keep getting a response from INIS, a sort of circular response, saying that they have to travel, the individuals in Idlib have to travel to the Irish embassy in Ankara in Turkey to access their travel documents. They're simply unable to do so, Minister. They're in a terrible situation and their lives are daily at risk. I know there are several 100,000 civilians stuck in Idlib, currently under bombardment, and this family are not the only family who are in a similar position. And I would ask, Minister, as a matter of urgency, whether it would be possible for the Department of Justice and INIS and the travel document section to arrange for Irish officials from Ankara to travel to the Turkey-Syria border to assist with the beneficiaries' travel documents and arrange for safe passage out of Syria. This is really an urgent matter, and I know there's been precedent. I should say I've liaised on this with Senator Kevin Humphreys and Senator Kelleher, both of whom share my concern and have met with the Syrian family concerned. I know there's some precedent in a situation where family members were at urgent risk in an African country in some previous years, where Irish officials did indeed travel and were able to bring travel documents to the individuals concerned. I think it's essential, Minister, that you would communicate with the travel document section to follow up regarding these particular beneficiaries that have got approval to come but are simply physically unable to get out of Idlib. And then there is also the bigger issue, as I say, about the IHAP applications that have been refused, and to the point where in October, as we now are, it's unlikely we're going to see the number of people who were supposed to be allowed to come in coming in. So finally, Minister, if I may just ask, is there a way we can ensure safe route, safe passage for persons who've already been granted permission? So the small group of people who've already got permission to come and join family members here, but who are simply unable to get out of a siege situation in Idlib.
Thanks very much, Cathaoirleach, and I want to thank, on behalf of Minister Flanagan and my own behalf, thank Senator Ravacci for raising this subject here today regarding the extreme difficulties some people from Syria have in obtaining travel documents, and these people, as Senator said, have received permission to come to Ireland by the Minister as part of the IHAP Humanitarian Admission Programme. I've actually met some people who have benefited from that programme, and as far as I know, it's unique to our country as well. And I would also say that our intention is that the full complement of 4,000 will be here before the end of the year as well. Hopefully, that's our intention anyway. I can advise the Senator that Irish travel documents are normally issued only to people physically and legally present within the state, and who by definition have had face-to-face contact with immigration and or Garda authorities. The checks and balances arising from this requirement assist the state to satisfy itself that travel documents issued legitimately. However, exemptions are sometimes made for persons who are outside the state, In such cases, the applicants are required to travel to the nearest Irish embassy to fill in application forms and to pick up their travel documents. This is necessary to protect the integrity of the process by verifying the identity of the applicant upon application and at the time of booklet collection. This links up the elements in the chain between applying and receiving the travel document. I understand that the International Committee of the Red Cross may exceptionally issue a one-way travel document for those who do not have officially recognised documents. However, such persons must have been granted prior permission to come to Ireland. For security reasons and in line with best practice, travel documents are not sent through international post but are sent by diplomatic channels to the nearest Irish embassy. Even if the level of security offered by international post were acceptable, postal services to required areas are not always available. I understand that this situation applies obviously in Syria. When Irish travel documents are issued, such as the programme refugee beneficiaries, or such as two programme refugee beneficiaries, it is to facilitate their travel where possible. It is the understanding of the Immigration Service of the Department that while the recipients have been given permission to enter the state and reside in the state, they must make their own arrangements for getting here. While the Immigration Service will process a valid application and cost to have an Irish travel document produced for the applicant, it is currently outside the scope and resources of the Immigration Service to guarantee that the travel document will reach an applicant in all instances. And as the Senator has said in her introduction, here, look, Syria is in a war zone, especially that particular part of it, and I don't think it's possible, and we wouldn't ask Irish officials to put their lives at risk by trying to travel in there. But I did say that the Irish Red Cross can issue documents in exceptional cases for one-way travel. So I'm not sure if that has been explored in this instance or not.
Briefly, Senator.
I thank the Minister for his response, but I am very disappointed that he doesn't suggest any real alternative. I did indeed raise in my last correspondence with the Immigration Service and the Travel Documents Department the possibility of a laissez-passer document being issued through for example, through the Red Cross, as you suggest, Minister. So that is currently being explored, and indeed the response I got from Innis was to say that the travel document section is exploring options for addressing the issue. So I know the officials are aware of this. It's just that for months now we've been getting this response saying they're exploring options, and all options. I know the family concerned are anxious to explore all options, and absolutely to explore the option you reference. But I would say, and of course nobody expects Irish officials to put their lives at risk, and we understand about the checks and balances, but given that permission has already been granted and given the very, very dangerous situation this family are in, I would ask, Minister, that I might have an opportunity to meet with you and to discuss this particular case, perhaps in more depth with you directly. But I'm pleased to have the opportunity to raise the more general issue as well.
Minister.
I'm always happy to meet with Senator Batchik, and in particular with a serious issue such as this. But again, I want to just repeat again that for security reasons and in order to uphold the integrity of the Irish immigration system, a number of checks and balances must be completed by the Irish authorities before a travel document be issued. Our rigorous policies and procedures are in line with those in operation in other EU member states. As the Senator will be aware, UNHCR Ireland works with us to design and implement the IHAP programme as part of the wider IRPP. And again, as I said earlier, I think it's unique to Ireland, that particular programme. Our Immigration Service cannot involve its staff members, the relatives or associates of the intended recipient, or third parties in delivering documents to locations that would potentially require those persons to put themselves at risk in order to effect the delivery. So herein lies the problem. As the Senator has described, that unfortunate city is under bombardment at the moment. So if the people can't get out to get the documents and our officials can't get in, it seems like an impossible, extraordinarily difficult and awful situation. The Minister and I, we really appreciate that some programme refugee beneficiaries in Syria do encounter difficulties to access travel documents which may be impeded by conflict and authorities in that region. It's not easy. However, as already stated, persons who cannot obtain documents from the relevant authorities in their country of origin may, in very urgent circumstances, approach the International Committee of the Red Cross for assistance. I'm glad to hear that that's actually being explored now, as the Senator has said. The Minister believes that the current system is the most robust and pragmatic means to facilitate travel to Ireland for those refugees from Syria who are in need of urgent international protection. Thank you.